I was exceptionally blessed to have the experience of living in Palestine. I felt like it was really transformative. I learned about the truths that were happening on the ground, and it so moved me that I began to dedicate the rest of my career to working on advocacy around this, making art regarding this, and now running in political races to hopefully have an influence, not just on what happens to my friends here who are Palestinian, but also hopefully being able to influence what's happening overseas for my friends who are Palestinian.
The Palestinian Arab community in the United States today is very much engaged in the electoral and political life in the American society. Many Americans of Palestinian origin are running for the Congress, and in order to talk about the importance of that for the Palestinian community and other communities within the United States, I have with me the social justice activist and the electoral campaign manager for Iymen Chehadeh, Ms. Maren Rosenberg. It's a great honor to have you in our program, Maren.
Oh, it's an honor for me to be a guest. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Why do you think that Mr. Iymen and your campaign team is going to win this race and to see Mr. Iymen a member of the American Congress?
This is a really unique race. Every 10 years in the United States, they do a census, and they've cut a new map. So this is a district with no incumbent. There's no person who already was in power or who was in charge of this congressional district. And Iymen is exceptionally hardworking. He is getting amazing responses from the people whom he speaks to out in the district. And we're very excited for his chances. We have a very strong campaign.
Yes, when we talk about the challenges that the candidates are facing, is there a difference between the challenges that minority candidates are facing compared to candidates from other backgrounds?
I think, of course, across the United States, we have an active interest in getting more minority candidates or equally represent the needs of the diverse community. However, in this specific race, there is only minority candidate, and this district is exceptionally diverse. It's a district of immigrants, and Iymen is a first-generation American, so can speak to those speak to the interests and needs of that community very well.
Yes, and Maren, what is the importance of Palestinian Arab representation in the American political life? Why it is important for Iymen and maybe others to run for the Congress elections and to have this competition?
When you want to make change, you need to have a seat at the table of power. And with people like Iymen running, you have a real chance at being able to affect change that'll impact both your lives in the United States, your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, but also influence foreign policy that will able to have an impact on the lives of your family back in Palestine or wherever it is that you may come from.
Yes, and how do the American people, the American society perceives such kind of candidacy that people, Palestinian person living in the United States, working in the United States, and now running for the election. How this is perceived by the ordinary, by the public of the American society?
I think the American society has seen a great amount of change in the past several years, especially with the pandemic and the rise of social consciousness around issues of race, gender identity, etc. So I think people are really excited and interested to hear the voices of those who haven't always been at the front and center of the political world. And so people like Iymen, who have been teaching and advocating for almost 20 years, are really well suited because they know the audience that they're speaking to, but they also can authentically represent themselves.
Yeah. In addition to your activities in elections and social justice, you are co-artistic director of the Uprising Theater. If you tell us about the Uprising Theater, its mission, its task, when was it founded?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. Iymen Chehadeh is the founder and co-artistic director of Uprising Theater. That's how Iymen and I first began working together. Uprising Theater is a social justice-based organization that focuses on the art, and we amplify the voices of the people of Palestine, as well as any other communities that have been marginalized, to create a connection, both so that those who are experiencing the marginalization can see themselves and their stories on stage, but also then make connections and have a greater understanding of the other communities that are experiencing the same thing. When everyone sees each other's stories together, they're able to grow and they're able to help each other achieve the goals, which all people want, which is dignity, justice, freedom, and safety.
Yes, and you lived here in occupied Palestine, mainly in Aida refugee camp, between 2009 2012. If you tell us about your experience in Palestine, what things did you like, what things you did not like here in Palestine?
I was exceptionally blessed to have the experience of living in Palestine. I felt like it was really transformative. I learned about the truths that were happening on the ground, and it so moved me that I began to dedicate the rest of my career to working on advocacy around this, making art regarding this, and now running in political races to hopefully have an influence, not just on what happens to my friends here who are Palestinian, but also hopefully being able to influence what's happening overseas for my friends who are Palestinian. The food is amazing. And I have literally never met a more hospitable community in my life. I think it's very telling that when you meet very small children, the very first word that they know in English is welcome. And I think that speaks volumes to the exceptional quality of hospitality in the Palestinian community. Is there anything I did not like? Well, it's very hard living under occupation. And,
Yes.
Living in the Mohayyam, it's not always easy when the Israelis shut off the electricity or the water is not present. But it also, I don't think I would have gotten the full scope of understanding without having to live those experiences as well. So in a small part, I'm grateful, but I certainly don't think it's anything that anyone deserves to have as part of their day-to-day life.
Yes, my final question to you, Maren, as we said that you lived here in Palestine and you got experience with the Palestinian situation, and you mentioned the suffering of the Palestinians under the Israeli occupation, something that not many people in the United States have awareness of. So when you returned to the United States and you met with the people there, how did you transfer this experience to them, and what impact that had?
I think that many people whom I spoke to were genuinely surprised. It was surprising to them to learn that the news was not accurately portraying the truth on the ground. I am a theater artist by background, so I developed any number of plays and arts programming that shared the stories, because I think if we sometimes can take a step back from the policies and really focus on the human stories and we can empathize, then we're able to really move the needle in the correct direction. And that's one of the things that I'm really excited for Palestine to have in a candidate and hopefully future congressman like Iymen, someone who can humanize the stories and really make it not a question of Palestinians or African Americans or indigenous people, but just about humans and human rights.
Maren Rosenberg, social justice activist, director of Iymen Chehadeh campaign for the Congress. It has been a great pleasure having you in our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you again so much for having me. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And from me, Osama Nazal. Have a nice time.